Folks, welcome to the midweek edition of College Sports Now. Alongside former UCLA quarterback Wayne Cook, I'm Stephen Hartzell. It is game week, week 0.
Yes.
There are 5 games on the docket coming your way 3 days from now. So that right there is a celebration. We should embrace this because football season is almost here. Wayne, great to see you. By the way, for those of you listening, we appreciate you guys tuning in. There are YouTube feeds of these shows. Should you, for some reason, maybe just out of curiosity, you want to know what Wayne looks like. You've heard he's a silver fox, but you want to see it in person. Well, not in person, but online. You know what I mean. Check us out. We're on the Varsity Network on YouTube. Just search College Sports Now. I'll put a link in our Twitter feed so you can see it. Wayne is slurping down coffee. We're getting ready for a good show. Phil Steele will be making his season debut in about 20 minutes from now. Wayne and I, just so we know, there will be plenty of football talk. Wayne and I have actual real jobs. Just for background and context, like the podcast stuff that we're doing that you're hearing, that's all for fun. We do have actual real jobs. Wayne is a school teacher, not just any school teacher, a public school teacher in the state of California. Do you have any idea how hard that is?
8th graders.
You're back in class, Wayne. You just finished your first full week?
Uh-huh.
How'd that go?
So this is the beginning. We had a half week last week, and it's rough. The kids are looking at
I
you.
like the half week as a parent. I like easing
I do too.
into it.
You
kind of
ease into it. You got to get in shape. But I will say this: we're doing colonial America kind of foundation of government. Some of the good stuff. The kids are looking at me like I'm crazy, just like you do on this podcast. I'm all over the place. I'm talking way too much. It's supposed to be review, but typical with 8th graders is they don't remember much of the stuff they were taught before. So I'm having a blast and using as many sports analogies as I can.
Yeah, no, that all checks out. My real job is I am a network manager for radio for college sports. I'm not an IT network manager. I manage radio stations for a school. One of those schools plays in week 0. So I have to remind my family members, my loved ones, the folks closest to me, that Dad's kind of burning it from both ends this week. Like it's been a little bit of a stressful week, but for the next 90 minutes we're going to talk ball, Wayne, and I'm super excited to talk to Phil. He's chomping at the bit. He's texting me wanting to know when he's coming on. He's like a
Whenever he
wants.
Like
a Rottweiler on a leash. He's just ready to go.
Whenever he wants. I mean, he does all the work that we absorb all year. And when you ask him questions, just kind of sit back and relax. It's like football meditation and just absorb he's the Yoda of college football. So it's fantastic, and I can't wait.
Are you the Luke Skywalker in that equation if he's Yoda?
A little all over the place, kind of hard to control, let my emotions get the best of me sometime. Absolutely. Yeah.
Does that make me R2-D2? Like, am I just like
You're
the sidekick?
C-3PO, kind of annoying and thinks you know everything. I mean, that's
very good.
Pretty
Very
good. Yeah.
Yes, I am fluent in over 10,000 forms of communication. So
There we go.
I did a show. Never tell me the odds. I did a show with.
I would rather be Han Solo, to be honest.
We all want to be Han Solo.
It's hard
for
to
obvious
be Han
reasons.
Solo. Yeah.
I did a show with Roddy earlier in the week. You can go back and listen to it.
Yeah.
It's we kind of touched on the Big 12. We had Shahan Jayaraja from CBS Sports, who's awesome at covering the Big 12.
Yeah.
So we dedicated an hour to that. I knew that we would have Phil Steele coming on the show here to run through these Week 0 games because there are lines. People are going to gamble on these games. We'll get Phil's takes. And obviously we're going to talk about this bad boy right here because he's done it again. Phil Steele's College Football Preview 2025 is out. Go to Barnes & Noble. Go to philsteele.com.
Whoa. Before you move on, and I interrupt all the time, my mother informs me last week that I interrupted you way too much, and I apologize for that.
Thank you for that observation, Mrs. Cook.
Yes. I just did it again, though, because I'm curious what you're paying Roddy these days, because his star is growing, man. That Roddy he's on my radio, he's on College Football Live, he's on ACC stuff. I mean, Roddy's a busy man. His star is on the rise for sure, and I'm glad he's back with us. To be honest,
he has an agent for a reason, and every summer I hold my breath because I send a text or I call him. And I'm waiting for him to, like, not pick up the phone or be like, hey, man, the price of the package has gone up.
Well, this is too good. Come on. College sports now, I mean, you know, come on.
Yeah, College Sports Now is one thing. When you're doing halftime of Kansas State, Iowa State in Bristol live on Saturday afternoon,
it's fantastic.
Not exactly apples to apples, but Roddy is absolutely killing it, and we're lucky that he's a part of our fraternity here. By the way, Felder will be back on Friday. But I saved a little bit of college football news for you because I wanted to hear your honest reaction to your boy, Tony Petitti, Big Ten commissioner, floating out the idea late last week that he wants to expand college football's playoff to 24 or 28 teams in a model in which the Big Ten and SEC would each get 7 automatic bids. The ACC and Big 12 would each receive 5, and then there would be 2 auto bids for, the plebes, the no-name teams from the non-Power 4 conferences. Oh, also 2 at-large teams. So here's my question for you, Wayne. 1, what did you think of it when you saw it come across ESPN, Twitter, however you digested this football news? And then 2, why should I take anything Tony Petitti says seriously ever again?
So, holy cow. So I've listened to him talk a lot about the idea that college football is really the only sport out there where there's not a lot more inclusion in the playoffs. We see it in our pro sports all the time. A whole bunch of teams make the playoffs. That doesn't necessarily make them good or bad. It gives us more games to consume. I get that. When I first saw it, I went, let's tap the brakes. But if you start thinking about, is this a masterful way to get people to stop thinking about the 5+11, where we talked about this last week, where the propaganda machine that is ESPN and some of the other SEC products, which, by the way, you may sound like that's an insult. It's not. They're doing it right. They're actually pushing their brand so much that people believe it. And if you want that to happen, then you need to start doing the same thing. And even if the Big Ten had a great year last year in their matchups with the SEC, even though they've won 2 straight national championships, it still feels like the SEC's like, yeah, but some of those bowl games really didn't matter. Some of those, we're still the SEC. We still have the best 6-6 teams in the country. We got screwed out of a couple of playoff spots, even though those teams might have gone on and lost in their bowl game. All of that stuff is just, they spin it in a way that's brilliant. So this is a compliment. Then you see the ESPN FBI rankings, and you see changes with no games being played. And you see teams like Clemson, and I forget the other, moving down. And then you see other teams in the SEC moving way up. You listen to one of the shows I listen to in the morning on my way to work. I'm listening to Rick Neuheisel in the morning talking about how the power rankings at some point had all of the SEC teams in it. And I'm like where they had the toughest schedules, I think, strength of schedule. You just start going down this road, and now you circle back to Petitti, and you start thinking about, well, let's kind of eliminate some of this. So if you start talking about this, and then we settle on 16 or 12 with 9-game schedules, and maybe we get to, because remember, the 12 and 16 just kind of it's the same number of games. It just kind of eliminates the bye, I think. I think you would have to play that first week. And so I would be okay with going to 16, to be honest with you. I don't think 24, 28 works. I could give you a little bit of history lesson where I'm coming from. And the only reason why I'm going to say this, Stephen, and I know this is a lot, but when I played in the Pac-10, long time ago, you were just were you even alive in 1993, 1994?
93, 94, I was 10, 11 years old.
So just when you start to admire, people in the powder blue out west. Okay, so when I was young, and a lot of conferences were like this. You had a tie into a bowl game that if you won your conference, you were guaranteed to go to that bowl game. Sure. Whether it was the Orange Bowl or the Rose Bowl. And so when I was a kid, my
Sugar
whole
Bowl
life,
for folks
Sugar
in my
Bowl,
neck of the woods.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like
Sugar
all
Bowl.
across the country, there was a tie-in. So for UCLA, playing in the Rose Bowl and playing against a Big Ten opponent, whether it be Wisconsin or whoever, or a lot of times Penn State or Michigan, whatever, those were amazing matchups. And both conferences, and here's where I'm going with this, it didn't matter what their record was. The conference record I played in the Rose Bowl for me was 6-2. We lost 2 games, but we beat Arizona and USC, who had the same records than us, so we won the head-to-head, which gave us a conference championship and let us play in the Rose Bowl. I never look back and then be like, man, we lost some games. We won the Pac-10,
right,
which in my opinion was a huge accomplishment, and we went to our Super Bowl. And we've got away from that ever since we started the BCS and we had the national championship. Then we went to 4, and then we went to 12. We've kind of changed it to where now the only teams that we think are any good are the teams that win every game or maybe lose one. And I think the issue is that we've learned that how much do you hear any of the people talking about college football always follow it with they have a schedule that is set up for them to win a lot of games and make the playoff.
Which, by the way, we're going to talk about with Phil because he's all about the schedules, how important schedules are when you're trying to handicap.
Look over the last several years. If Indiana played UCLA's schedule last year, they probably lose a couple more games. And I'm not saying that Indiana was bad. If you play in a conference that's a little bit easier and you miss the top couple, and I don't know what Arizona State's schedule, and I don't know what I haven't looked. I just know that like last year Phil had UCLA as the second toughest schedule in the country. This year it's 8. And I feel like it's way more doable than last year. Well, I don't know if you saw the news, but people are calling out Indiana for like their next 10 years.
Yeah, did you see what Coach
because their schedule
Signetti said?
I did. He said he's doing the SEC thing, which was pretty funny.
SEC schedule, which is fantastic.
It's pretty funny.
SEC fans know he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Like, book cupcakes because your conference is, in theory, going to be tough enough. Now, with the Big Ten, you got so many teams, and that's the downside to UCLA's draw the last 2 years.
No, I agree.
You're getting heavyweights.
Well, we start with Utah, and then UNLV is underrated.
Utah,
Dan Mullen's probably going to do a good job, and Utah's supposed to be really good this year.
I meant specifically, you're right, Utah's going to be a very good team. I meant specifically in the Big Ten. Indiana's draw last year in the Big Ten saw them play Ohio State. We know how that went, but they didn't play Oregon. They didn't play Penn State. They didn't have to play the other CFP teams, and that was the same case with SMU, to your point. SMU last year goes to the ACC championship game, goes to the college football playoff, didn't play Clemson during the regular season, didn't have to play Miami in the regular season. So the benefit of the draw.
It's amazing that when teams also win 3 really pretty easy non-conference games and avoid injuries and the fatigue and getting beaten up like other schools do, if they play really tough matchup, like I brought up UCLA playing Utah, that's going to be a heavyweight fight. You know, you gotta show up when you play Utah. And other teams have big games. We see that. We see some huge ones early on. But there are teams that just kind of drift through it. You're going to be sitting there going, wow, they have 4 or 5 wins. They're 5-0. They're ranked, and they have not played anybody. And there's other teams that are, like I know my senior year, that championship season I was talking about, my junior year, we lost our first 2 games to 2 ranked teams, and one of them that played for the national championship. But then we went on a run after that. I mean, that's what makes college football so interesting, but that strength of schedule thing, and you mentioned it too, the draw in your league, man, it matters so much. Now let's circle back, though. When you start talking about playoffs and automatic bids, if you scratch and claw and fight, and let's say it's a 12 or 16 team playoff, but you know the first 3 or 4 teams in your league are going to get in automatically, man, it doesn't really matter what your record is as long as you get to that spot. And that means you could have had a way tougher schedule, but you made it. And then, like last year, remember, what did Ohio State finish in the regular season? 4th.
You're talking about in the AP poll?
No. In the regular season, they were 4th in the Big Ten.
Yes.
And they won the national championship. And so, to me, that's the argument that the way the schedule works out, sometimes those teams with 2 and 3 losses that now can make the playoffs, that played a horrible schedule or maybe had some bad injuries at the wrong time, or maybe just had the 2 teams that if they played them at home, they would have won, but they had to play them on the road. Now they're in the playoffs, and it's like we're starting over. It's a new season, and we really get a chance to see who the best teams are. I don't like 24-28. I like the idea of 12 and 16 still. I don't mind keeping it where it's at. I like the changes they made. Wouldn't bother me if they went to 16. I am kind of a fan of the automatic bids. I really am. I don't know what the numbers are yet because I think it's just I don't want a committee I just don't want a committee choosing.
automatic bids are still there for conference champions.
But that's it. I know that.
The difference this year, because again, it's worth the straight seeding method. So if you're ranked third, you're the 3 seed. You don't get moved down because you got to slot behind ACC champ, Big 12 champ, etc. The thing for me, though, Wayne, as a football fan, and I think in your heart of hearts you understand and can sympathize with this. This is the 3rd straight year we have tweaked the college football playoff format. Mm-hmm. This is the straight seeding. We still have 12 teams. Last year was what it was, where you were seeded based on highest-ranked conference champs. Okay, that's why Ohio State ended up playing Oregon in the Rose Bowl, because Ohio State didn't win their conference. But, hey, here's Boise, here's Arizona State, here's Clemson. And then, obviously, 2 years before that, we just had 4. We got to let this thing bake, man. Like, for the health of the sport, we have got to stop changing the college football playoff format, right? Like, we got to just let this thing be. At some point in the very near future, we got to leave it alone.
Well, we saw what happened last year. Like, Arizona State's being picked to be a top 15. I forget where they ended up. 11, I think, in the AP. You can see already that a really good year from a team that was picked to finish near the bottom of their conference that made the playoff benefited from next year's poll. They have a returning quarterback, which a lot of people don't. And they have a lot of returning starters, really good coach. But it's to me, expanding the playoff helps these programs. Indiana's also ranked pretty high, even though they did lose their quarterback. Those 2 programs now have a chance to step up and compete because they had a chance to get in. When we had a 14 playoff, it was pretty much going to be the same pool of 6 or 7 teams that had a chance to get in every single year, and those teams had the biggest fan bases. They had the most followers, and they were the ones saying, why not just keep it as it is, because they were controlling the situation. Now we have other teams trickling in. We have a transfer portal. We have money involved now, and I would argue that it's leveled the playing field a little bit. So it adds other teams into the mix. Now, did we still have a blue blood win last year and the year before and the year before? And we probably still will. But it's going to allow some of these other teams to start building in a way that I don't think they could before.
Yeah. I think 12's plenty.
Personally. I'm okay with 12. I already told you that. I'm okay with that. I don't mind 16 either, but I'm okay with 12. I think we let it, but people are always thinking about ways to make more money. There's a lot of people that have been talking about eliminating conference championships.
Which is kind of a cornerstone of Petitti's proposal, which was that we'd get rid of that.
We didn't have it in the old days. You play your regular season. A fan of ours got mad at me last week because I said Texas won, and it was Georgia that won the conference championship game, but Texas was the winner of the regular season. And then they lost it. So I was wrong, and I apologize. But it tied into my narrative that pretty much Georgia and Alabama seem to be winning that conference on a regular basis, with LSU and maybe Auburn jumping in every once in a while.
Don't get me started on Auburn. They're in the news this week for all the wrong reasons. I'm not even going to give them any airtime here. Not even going to talk about them.
I saw that. Anyway, how much time do we have before Phil?
Phil is here, okay?
Why are we... Shut me up.
Listen, this is a show. Folks don't know what's happening behind the scenes, okay? I get a little thing that lets me know that Phil has entered the chat, and I let him sit there, and I let him sip his coffee, and when I know he's ready to go, I let him in. Phil Steele joins the show next. As promised, folks, Phil Steele live and in color here on the midweek edition of College Sports Now. Phil, it is so great to see you and talk to you. And there are week 0 games. There's 5 of them coming up this weekend. We will run through all 5 of those. But first and foremost, I got to say, brother, you did it again, man. The College Football Preview Mag, if you don't have it, get yourself one. They're still available at Barnes & Noble, although at my Barnes & Noble, Phil, they're
going
gone
fast.
So you got to go to philsteele.com. You need to find a place that has these, and there aren't very many places at this hour. But congratulations on the magazine, Phil. I've been neck deep in it since I got my hands on it in early July. So congratulations.
I appreciate it. It's 360 pages this year, the biggest it's ever been. So it's now there's 136 teams, like getting it's like getting 136 media guides rolled into one, 2 full pages on each team. And by the way, Barnes and Noble has their buy one get one 50% off special up until Wednesday, August 20th. So a lot of folks like to get 2 magazines, use one at the start, and then switch over once it gets all dog-eared. That would be the ideal time, but it's only good till Wednesday.
Okay, there you go.
I just have to ask this question, Phil, because like I said, every year, Barnes & Noble, there was only 2 left when I went there, and I was like, grab it before someone else gets it because you got to have it. But I keep wondering, and you talked about the book getting thicker. Man, with this turnover of all these different teams, like I know for myself at UCLA, there's so many new players. I remember when Colorado did it, it was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? It feels like a lot of teams are doing it now. I just have to imagine when you start, and I know you start almost immediately after the last year, to get all this stuff done and all the talking to the coaches. I know you talked to almost all of them, but to just be able to get comfortable with the coaches and their players and sometimes new staff, I got to imagine this is harder than it's ever been to get this thing done.
Yeah, especially the last month now with that transfer portal closing at the end of April. I had to wait until the transfer portal was closed to start talking to the coaches, because last year I started talking to a few coaches before the portal closed, and then boom, a couple of their top players left. And, you wonder what their position is. So anyway, trying to cram that all into the month of May, and each coach's call takes about an hour to go over the team with the coach. And I tell you, there were so many players that signed with the team at winter and left after spring practice was over. It was remarkable going through the rosters this year. But I did an article on philsteele.com, and you'll find this interesting, Wayne. And it's about the homegrown teams, the ones that are not using the transfer portal very heavy. You mentioned UCLA, 50 new coaches or 50 new players, 8 new coaches this year. That's a lot of transition. And I'll go over my conversation with Tim Beck at Coastal Carolina. I get on the phone with him. I'm like, Coach, last year you had 68 new players, but now it's year 3. Things are settling down, right? He's like, Phil, this year I got 69 new players. He goes, the thing we're doing this year is we're learning that we're going to have 69 new players every year. We're simplifying our offense. We're simplifying our defense so that we're able to get players up to speed quicker. I think that's a big change in college football. But going back to the homegrown blog, I think teams that are homegrown, like Iowa State, Iowa, Clemson, Army and Navy, the players come in, they're there. You've got the team atmosphere. I think those teams are going to have good success this year. Ohio State last year had some transfers, but the majority of the team is homegrown. Michigan, the year before that won the national title, had some transfers, majority of the team homegrown. And the danger, I think, with the transfer portal is like Florida State. When things are going good with a bunch of transfers, you can have a team like they did in 22 and 23. But in 24, once things start to go bad, you don't have that cohesion. You don't have the team. And all of a sudden, boom, you finish 2 and 10. So I'm all for homegrown teams nowadays if you can.
Phil, I got to respond to this because this is why I love talking to you, because I feel like I have the exact same thoughts all the time. Every single coach right now, their culture's great. The new players fit in perfectly. Well, get hit in the mouth a couple times and then find out what your culture's like. That's when you learn. So thank you, Phil. I mean, it's so great to get to talk to you. You cover the magazine, but you've got this stuff down because that is so true. So these coaches are trying to find that, how do I build this culture and recruit really, really well? Because I know a lot of coaches, they don't want to bring in that many transfers.
Right.
But sometimes they feel like they have to. And it's like the only way they can survive. And then, who knows what you're going to get.
Yeah, especially the group of 5 coaches, because when you're talking to the coach, their comment will be, oh, he's going to have such a good year, he's going to be gone next year, meaning that the Power 4 teams are going to buy him off their team. Yeah. And they realize that once they develop a player, he's going to be gone. And if you go back to the Big 12, take a look. Colorado, Arizona State both had new head coaches, brought in a lot of transfers in year 1, and both struggled. Year 2, they still had transfers, but at least it was year 2. They had a little bit of good footing, and they did better. That's why I think like teams like West Virginia and UCF this year are going to struggle. First year, ton of new players. And how about the amount of new players signed after spring? Oklahoma State brought in over 20. West Virginia over 20. That means the coach isn't happy with this team when spring's over. And now you've got to incorporate all these guys and become a team all in the month of August. I think that's pretty tough.
So Stephen, I got one more. I'm excited right now. We've had too much of an offseason.
You've been waiting for this moment all summer.
I have been.
I'm not going to interrupt.
So Phil, like you mentioned, and this is something that I think about too, playing quarterback is really hard. And with the transfers over the years, we bring in quarterbacks, and you talked about maybe making everything simpler, which really isn't good for not only college football, but I think sometimes it affects the NFL too, because they're going to have to train these quarterbacks in ways like I've heard a lot of coaches talk about. They have their quarterbacks become one or two reads and then run, which is why being athletics is so important. We're losing the Joe Burrows of the world that can go through and throw the ball brilliant, use the whole field from sideline to sideline, because it's not even being taught in some cases. And so that scares me a little bit too, but I want to ask this question for a reason. We have been spoiled, even though a lot of these quarterbacks have transferred, but we have had some old, experienced quarterbacks kind of dominating college football. You mentioned, we're going to talk about a game, Kansas State and Iowa State. Well, they both have experience at quarterback. There's a ton of teams in the top 15 that don't. We don't have Dylan Gabriels and Bo Nixes and Joe Burrow and all these. Even Stetson Bennett had been around for a while. Now it seems like this year we're making a lot of predictions at places like Ohio State and Alabama, where we haven't seen a ton of these quarterbacks. We've been used to seeing players with a ton of experience at that position.
Yeah, and that's why I think you look at a couple of players at the top of my Heisman list. Cade Klubnik, who I think will win it this year, is a guy that's experienced. He's got my number 2 set of wide receivers to throw to. He's got my number 2 offensive line in front of him. Clemson's going to be favored in all 12 games. I think Clemson could lead the nation in total offense, win all 12 games, hand Klubnik the Heisman. You got Drew Aller for Penn State, number 1 set of running backs, number 1 offensive line, and they had in 3 outstanding transfers at wide receiver, which will boost that offense. Plus, I think Penn State's going to have a really good year, and that's why those 2 teams are at the top with the experienced quarterback. Now, for the inexperienced guys, take a guy like Ty Simpson at Alabama. He's stepping into a situation where all of the units on that team, with the exception of quarterback, rank in my top 10. That means he's surrounded by talent, and he doesn't have to go out and win the football games. Plus, I think in Ty Simpson's case, he may be a better fit for the offense than Jalen Milroe was last year. They got Ryan Grubb coming in as offensive coordinator. And so I'm looking for Ty Simpson, who, by the way, was my number 3 rated quarterback out of high school. It's not like this is a walk-on taking over a QB. When coming out of high school, he was one of the top QBs, and I think he's going to live up to that billing this year. So I think the supporting cast is huge. Take a look at Jackson Arnold for Oklahoma last year. They had 0 returning starters on the offensive line, and at one point, they were down their top 5 receivers. Guess what? Jackson Arnold struggled, got benched at one point. I think now that he's at Auburn, and I heard Steven earlier say we're not talking about Auburn, but he's got a better wide receiving core and a better offensive line in front of him. He'll probably have a much better year this year. But, yeah, it is huge in college football, I think, to have a veteran quarterback. And, and one more interesting thing on quarterbacks, you look at Tennessee, Joey Aguilar. A lot of quarterbacks will say, this is my 3rd offensive coordinator in 3 years. He's getting his 3rd offensive system in 1 year. He was at App State. He had to learn UCLA system, and now he's got to learn Tennessee system. Wayne, how tough is that as the next QB?
So hard. It's so hard. The good news is some of these players that bounce around a lot, they start picking up language, and I think a lot of schools, the language isn't as drastically different as it might have used to be, so it makes it a little easier for them to pick up on concepts and stuff like that. I mean, like I said, it's you talk about a trade. That Nico Iamaleava and Joey Aguilar, both those guys had to go to a new place and learn a new system late. So it'll be interesting to see how they pick up on it. But I totally agree with you that when you take an experienced quarterback like Arch Manning or even like Ty Simpson, it helps that they have been there too. They've been there and they've been able to practice and absorb and watch. And now when they get their chance to play, I think they're more likely to be ready. Sometimes when people play as freshmen, it's a little bit more of a struggle, but people have to remember too, usually freshmen that play a lot, like Dante Moore at Oregon, what are the odds of him from playing at UCLA to sitting at Oregon to now playing? He's a little bit more qualified to be that starter now than maybe he was as a freshman. Even Nico Iamaleava at UCLA, him playing last year and kind of struggling to a 10-win season, right? Do you think he's probably going to grow and get better from 1 year to the next? I would hope so, because usually quarterbacks do improve the more they play.
Yeah, Dylan Raiola at Nebraska should have a big jump this year. After struggling in the second
Well,
half of last
Lagway's going to get better. Sellers is going to get better. These guys are all like they're going to get better the more they play.
See how Phil? You see how Wayne had to go the Nico route. He had to try to find a way to
He
slip
was a big off-season move.
Here's my question for you, Phil, and for folks who maybe they're getting their hands on the magazine for the first time, that they're not familiar with how you operate. You like to stagger the magazine by conferences. Okay, my question for you, Phil. I noticed that the conference that has won the last 2 national championships is still somehow behind the mighty SEC. Surely that was a mistake. Surely that was some sort of oversight by you and your staff, right?
Yeah, I think when you look at the Big Ten, they're probably going to have more teams with the double-digit wins than the SEC, but that's because I think the SEC is a little bit deeper. Go back and take a look at my number 10 team in each conference. In the Southeastern Conference, I've got South Carolina, a team that just missed out on the playoffs. They've got Superman at quarterback and Lenora Sellers. And in the Big Ten, my number 10 team is Minnesota, a good team, but I don't think you're going to put them up there as a playoff contender this year, especially breaking in a new quarterback. So I do think the SEC a little bit deeper. And I gave the Big Ten number 1 conference last year. I've got them tied at the top this year, but I really think overall, depth-wise, the SEC is probably the deeper league.
How's that make you feel, Wayne?
I'm okay with it. No,
sure?
Because listen, Phil, I just called him the Yoda of college football. Like, he doesn't just say stuff. There's thought behind it. Like, we all know that once the season starts, crazy things happen. We have injuries. People lose their quarterbacks. Like, things change. But as of right now, I don't even have a problem with that. I've never said the SEC is not a great conference. They are. Big Ten has some really good teams, too. I used to argue for the Pac-12 all the time because – Oregon, they're a pretty good team, and they have a chance to be really good this year, too. There are some question marks, but they might be right there at the end also. Like, we don't know. I think Washington's going to get better. I like Jed Fish way too much. So there's a lot of stuff. Just like I said about Alabama, I like Kalen DeBoer as a coach a lot. Like Chris Kleiman at Kansas State, I like him a lot. These are really good coaches that if they can get the right pieces and kind of find that magic – they can win a lot of games and do some damage, and that's what makes college football really fun.
How bitter was that for you, Wayne, that the Pac-12 had arguably the best season that it had in its final season? I mean, the Pac-12 was dynamic in 2023.
Well, it makes me wonder which conference gets assassinated next.
Here's the good news, guys. The Pac-12 is back next year, right? I mean, the Pac is back.
That's
so,
true.
you only got one more year, Wayne, and then you can get the pom-poms out. Phil, there are 5 football games involving FBS teams this weekend. Now, I know there's some FCS on FCS matchups as well. If you want to dive into those, feel free to enlighten us. But I do have 5 games on the docket for this week. Wayne, with your permission, I'd like to jump in, if that's okay.
Well, the only thing...
Steven, thanks for joining the podcast.
Thank you,
you,
Phil. Yes, good to see you, too.
You can have this, but I know which game you're going with, the big one. Just want to remind, I did get to go to Dublin, Ireland for a vacation this last year, which was great. So anybody that's made that trip, I'm also excited to watch these quarterbacks. But go ahead and ask the question.
You've got 2 very good quarterbacks, Avery Johnson, Rocco Becht. It's a Big 12 game right out of the chute, and it is the premier game, high noon Eastern kick for Iowa State.
2 great coaches, too.
And Kansas State. Yes, 2 great coaches. Listen, 2 contenders for the Big 12. Phil, you correct me if I'm wrong. K-State laying a field goal on a neutral field in Dublin. What's your handicap of this game?
Well, I tell you what, to talk about the first game of the season. Now, as we all know, the Big 12 is the easiest conference to forecast, correct?
Yeah, just tell Arizona State that last year. Right.
I think there are 7 teams that can win the Big 12 this year.
Yeah.
One of them is Kansas State. One of them is Iowa State. And, this is basically an elimination game. Whoever wins this game is basically 2 games ahead of the other one. They're not only 1 game ahead in the standings, but they hold the tiebreaker if the 2 teams end up tied. So it's a massive game. It's probably an elimination game for the Big 12 playoff. I love both teams. Kansas State with Avery Johnson. They've got their top running back, as Wayne hit on. Coach Kleiman, one of the best head coaches out there. K-State will be well prepared. Matt Campbell. Last year, if you followed Iowa State, I thought they were the best team in the Big 12 mid-season. Then their defense got all banged up. When I went over the team with Coach Campbell, he was giving me a ton of players. This guy was out. And you're like, well, that was your whole first line unit, basically. So I think their defense is going to be much better this year. They've got Rocco Becht. They lost their top two receivers, but they bring in two guys who I think will be able to replace them. They've got the run game and the best offensive line they've had there probably since Matt Campbell's been there. So I think it's a great game, a pure toss-up game. I'm going to take the field goal with you could lose the game by 3. Okay, it's a push. You could lose the game by 1. You still win. But I think Iowa State may even have a slight fan advantage for the game. I think these two teams dead even. So I'm going to lean with the underdog in this one, Stephen.
All right, Phil. So this game matters. So I need the best you can give me. It's Idaho State at UNLV, and it matters to me because it's the second UCLA game against UNLV at UNLV. Dan Mullen seems like a whole bunch of new players. A lot of people expect them to be pretty good again this year. I'm curious what you think.
This is interesting. The thing I have found going through these rosters with the coaches is that I have found a higher percentage of hits with the FCS players or a group of 5 players moving up that have had the experience and have done extremely well. They come in, they're happy to be there. They hit the training table, the weight room. Maybe they were under-recruited out of school. They got bigger, stronger, faster in college, but the experience is huge. Then the Power 2 players moving down. I think there hasn't been. And I actually started the conversation with Coach Mullen with that fact. And then after we go through the roster, I found that he's basically recruited all Power 2 guys moving down. So this is going to be a big test for that theory of mine. We'll see how he does. But Coach Mullen, each player we brought up, figures he is going to be able to get the best out of them. He was very highly confident in that. I think when you look at Idaho State, my power ratings have UNLV about a 31, 35-point favorite in the game. It should not be that much of a contest. I do believe they're going to beat Iowa State and probably get the cover. I believe the line's only about 25.5. But we're going to find out the true test of UNLV when they face UCLA. And for the record, Wayne, I like UCLA in that game.
Well, that's great. That makes me happy. I love what you said there, though. Because I feel this, I've always felt the same way, and I've never articulated it the way you do. But like good players find a way to shine when they get on the field, no matter what level they're playing at. Just good players just find a way to do stuff. And I think what it looks like with UNLV is they've got some guys with some stars next to their name from high school that maybe haven't lived quite up to expectations. And now you have a coach with confidence. It's like I can get the most out of them. But usually, I think you were going this route. There's a reason why those players may not have been successful. Because you can have all the talent in the world, and if you show up at an Alabama or a Georgia and you don't put in the work, it doesn't pay off. And so sometimes those habits translate, and they go with you wherever you go, and you just, for whatever reason, end up being someone that doesn't live up to expectations.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm going to really have a close eye on UNLV this year because I've never seen a team completely bring in all P2 players on their roster. Basically, there's very few FCS guys coming up, but there's a lot of coaches that right now only recruit FCS guys or a group of 5 guys just because they get themselves a very happy to be their player. It's good for the team, the team atmosphere as well.
Phil, that's going to be a test for your setup, this UNLV Idaho State game. It's on a channel called the Mountain West Network, which is new to me. I don't know if I have that in the package, so that's going to be a test for you and your capabilities, 4 o'clock Eastern.
I am going to be scrambling. I appreciate the advance notice there, Stephen. I'm going to start looking for it tomorrow.
We help each other. We help each other on this show, Phil.
I appreciate that.
All right, let's go to 6:30. Fresno State at Kansas. This game is on Fox, so no problem finding it on television. Kansas maybe not in that top tier of Big 12 programs, Phil, that are favored to win the conference, but you still got Lance Leipold. You still got Daniels at quarterback. This is a dangerous Kansas team, laying less than 2 touchdowns at home in a newly renovated stadium in Lawrence. What do we think?
Yeah, and last year when I talked to Coach Leipold, I was going over the team with him. Every position was senior, and I'm like, well, Kansas better get it done this year because they're going to lose a lot next year. They're going to lose a lot of these seniors. And then as the season played out, Kansas was much better than its final record. They had some close losses. They blew a lot of fourth quarter leads, lost. I love the way Leipold held the team together. And boom, they played 4 ranked teams in a row. They nearly beat Kansas State. And then they knock off 3 straight ranked teams. They knocked BYU out of the Big 12 title game, Colorado out of the Big 12 title game, nearly knocked Iowa State out of the Big 12 title game, upsetting all 3 teams. But a lot of that team's gone. However, Daniels is back at quarterback, which is big. And actually going through the roster with Coach Leipold, it sort of changed my perception of what Kansas would be this year. I felt more confident after talking to them. Like the receiving core, they lose their top 4 receivers for last year, but if you look at the production level, there's like 800, 500, 300, 300. The new receivers will match those stats easily this year. And if Daniels, who Coach Leipold told me was pushing a little too hard at the start of last year with the interceptions, settled down at the end of the year, we saw the outcome. And then you hit it right on the head, Stephen. The fact that they're in a brand new stadium. I mean, last year they were playing in Arrowhead. They're playing in a soccer stadium. While this thing's being built, they're all excited it's being built. Now they're excited to be playing there. I think you have a very excited Kansas team. Meanwhile, Fresno is one of those group of 5 teams with a ton of new transfers, a first-year head coach, trying to put it all together. And I just think Leipold is in a much better situation at home. I love the fact they are laying less than 2 touchdowns in that one. I grab it while it's 12.5. You got to think that one's going to move up to 14 by game time.
All right, Stephen, I'm going to skip one, and I'm going to go to the Stanford at Hawaii. Having traveled to Hawaii last year, it's a rough trip, really. I know going to Hawaii doesn't sound rough, but it is. The stadium they play in is like a high school stadium. Stanford is doing the Andrew Luck experience with a 1-year interim head coach. They've fallen off a long way from a program that used to be one of the top ones out west. I'm just curious what you think of what's happening with Stanford, and what do you think about this game at Hawaii?
I think it's a tough situation for Stanford, switching a head coach like they did. They, of course, don't use the portal very much, but they didn't have to. It's not like I believe it was 2 years ago, they lost all their players to the portal, and because they had all graduated, and so once you get a Stanford degree, go ahead and go take some money somewhere. But now, if you don't have that Stanford degree, you're going to stay. So, I didn't talk to Coach Reich. Stanford's a team where I talked to both coordinators, and both coordinators sent me the same message. This is a Stanford team that really knows they're underrated, knows nobody's giving them a chance, and they feel good about that. They're really happy to be there, and they think they're going to surprise some folks. So keep your eyes on that this year. But let's go to Hawaii. Timmy Chang. It's his 4th year, I believe. And Coach Chang definitely has by far his best team. And last year, at the end of the year, they got a new quarterback, did very well at the end of the season. I think this is by far his best team. They're at home. I personally would have Hawaii about a 3-point favorite in the game. And guess what? Hawaii's about a 3-point favorite in the game. It wouldn't surprise me if Stanford won. It wouldn't surprise me if Hawaii won. It'd be a fun game to watch and learn about the two teams. I'm intrigued to see if the Stanford coaches are correct and that they are much better than you think they are. Or I'm intrigued to see if Timmy Chang and company do indeed have their best team. And keep in mind, look at Timmy Chang's record at home versus away. I think he's only won 2 road games. As Wayne just mentioned, they're tough to beat at home in that completely different setting with the long travel. So I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. And thank goodness it's on at 3 in the morning. I'm not going to be up at 3 in the morning on Saturday night trying to finish off that Hawaii game.
So there you go, Wayne. Just enjoy the game. You don't have to put together a 5-team parlay. Just sit this one out. Okay?
Wayne will be betting the total somehow, or bet some props in the second quarter.
I did see that there's weather on the islands, like it's going to be windy. I heard something about sustained winds, 20, 25 miles per hour, just something to think about.
That's the general forecast for Hawaii games.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm disappointed in Wayne. Not surprised, but disappointed that he skipped over Conference USA. Phil, I know you won't.
I wanted to leave it for you.
Well, listen, WKU hosting Sam Houston State, 7 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. I put together this list. I toil over all the games, and Wayne just skips them, Phil. He just disrespects my list. What do you make of WKU? I talked to somebody in Bowling Green. They're very excited about the transfer quarterback, the Maverick McIver kid from Abilene Christian. What do you know about him? What do you think about this game? Does it do anything for you, WKU and Sam Houston?
Yeah, Coach Helton's trying to get Lightning to strike twice. Remember a couple of years ago, he went to the FCS level, brought in a quarterback, brought in an offensive coordinator. His quarterback threw for 5,000 yards that year. Now he's bringing in Abilene Christian's quarterback and offensive coordinator, hoping to get catch Lightning twice. Now, both teams are rebuilt. Western Kentucky, Helton is very matter of fact that they're going to lose players and they're going to replace them. And he's done a very good job of it. And so this is one of those group of 5 programs that loses your 50, 60 players every year, but he's done a really good job replacing them. Sam Houston won 10 games last year. They have a brand new head coach in Phil Longo. I thought Casey Keeler did a great job. Keeler's going to surprise in a couple games at Temple this year. Watch out for that. And I asked Coach Keeler, it was interesting. I'm like, why didn't you bring more players with you to Temple? A lot of coaches do that when they leave. And he said he didn't think the Texas players fit the Philadelphia area, and he wanted to build this as a Philadelphia area. I digress. We'll forget talking about Temple for a minute. But I think Coach Longo is switching up the offense a little bit. He's got a quarterback that's better running the football. He was the leading rusher last year than throwing it. And he's going to bring the air raid in there. He's brought in a ton of transfers. I talked about first-year head coaches with a ton of transfers struggling. I got a little more faith in the veteran head coach Helton at home, coming off a big bowl loss. I'm going to take Western Kentucky. I believe they're minus 10 in that one, Stephen.
10.5, yes, sir.
Yeah, it's starting to go up. I would take Western Kentucky in that one. I think they're the better team and at home.
All right, I have one more. I know we don't have any more games, but Phil, one of my favorites is when you get excited about talking about the Joe Moore Award and which team you choose. And I've always believed that whenever I try to figure out who I like in conferences, I start up front.
Yes.
Like who's got, and it's hard because a lot of people bring in transfers there too. But who are you liking early on? And maybe give me a few of the teams that you think will compete for that as the season goes on to win that award.
Yeah, well, my number one rated offensive line in the magazine is Penn State. They've got practically everybody back. The Big O, their guard Iona is back. He would have been a first-round draft pick had he come out this year. So I think Penn State's loaded. And one of the reasons I've got Penn State at the top, I've got Clemson number 2. Yep. Offensive line, guess what? I got Clemson number 2. So I agree. I'm an offensive line guy. Take a team like Florida, for example. I've got them the number 5 rated offensive line, number 10 rated defensive line. If you're strong at the line of scrimmage, you're going to win quite a few games. Now, they have a brutal schedule, but don't be surprised if they're knocking off some of these brutal schedule guys, especially if DJ Lagway still stays healthy. So improved offensive line, I think. Oklahoma's going to have a vastly improved offensive line after having 0 returning starters last year. Bill Bedenbaugh, I think, is one of the best offensive coordinators out there. But there are a ton of candidates. And here's one for you, Wayne. When I'm talking to Coach Elko of Texas A&M last year, I'm like, Coach, okay, we go over every offensive lineman. That's why these calls take so long. And I say, how do you feel about the offensive line, Coach? He's like, you know what, Phil, we're middle of the road back in the SEC this year. Yeah. And so this year we finished talking about the offensive line. I'm like, okay, how do you feel about the offensive line, Coach? He goes, Phil, we're top tier SEC. We're Joe Moore Award contender. Now that all of a sudden made my ears perk up. And I'm like, all right, I think Texas A&M is going to have a pretty good offensive line. And Texas A&M is my number 2 surprise team in the country now, because if you have that type of offensive line, you've got an experienced quarterback, and they've got 3 running backs. It could be the feature running back for almost any team in the country. That's going to be a dangerous team to watch this year. So you know what the favorite part of my job is? It's talking to the head coaches. Just when you go over in a team with them, they give you an entire hours of their time. You just learn so much, and it's just so valuable to what I do.
That's a great answer,
hang on, real quick. I know you know the number, okay? How many coaches didn't talk to you for your magazine?
Did not?
Did not, that you were not able to. I know you get most of them. How many were you not able to get?
9.
Wow.
But it's different circumstances. For example, last year, I didn't talk to Jim Mora of Connecticut because he was on vacation. And the only time I could fit him in, I was booked up with coaches. This year, for example, I didn't get to talk to Coach Sarkisian like I normally do because we set up a call for this day in the second week of May, and then he had to cancel. And then he set it up for the 4th week of May, and he had to cancel. And then he tried to set it up for the first week of June, but I was booked up on that day. So, when a coach tries to say, hey, I only have 12 o'clock available and I got to coach at 12 o'clock, what are you going to do? So sometimes we miss them. There are a couple schools that the SIDs just put up a wall and they say, no, we're not going to talk to you. I won't get into specific names. But other than that, or for example, first-year head coaches. Sometimes I talked to Coach Odom at UNLV each of the last 2 years. Great call both times. This year he's a first-year head coach at Purdue, and he's got like 85 new players. So he probably doesn't know his roster very well, and he knows I'm going to ask him about every damn player on that team. So I think he became a little unavailable this year. I got a feeling I'll talk to him next year when he knows his team a little bit better.
No, that's so cool. Because look, Wayne knows this because he's done coach interviews. Some of those coaches don't want to talk. Like it's like pulling teeth to try to get the information that you want, and there's an art to that. So I tip my cap to you because that's an hour. I can barely go 10 minutes with some of these guys. So that's impressive. That's very good. Phil, you're the best. I know you know that.
Yeah.
Next week, save some Diet Mountain Dew for us because we got a loaded week 1 slate, buddy. I mean, we have got some big time games. So
Are there
next
a lot of
week,
games next week?
well, it's not so much the quantity, but it's the quality. You know this. So we'll run through all the games in the top 25, and I will be putting you on the spot. I know you've been doing this show with us for a while, but I'm going to ask you if there's something off, outside the ranked teams that you like, because I know you've been poring over these lines for months. So I know there's something week 1. Maybe there's 2 somethings. I don't know. But
There are 98 games next week. A ton of FBS. Can I use an FBS versus FCS game?
absolutely. Yeah, I think you did last year. I think Duquesne was involved, if memory serves. So, yes, absolutely enlighten us, educate us. That's what we're here for, Phil. You are the best, man. Thank you for hopping on with Wayne and I. Looking forward to it all season.
And don't forget, Barnes & Noble, buy one, get one, 50% off magazines, good till Wednesday. Save yourself $10, go get 2 magazines there.
Well, Phil or Wayne, you were talking about wanting to go get was it a Maxim or a Men's Health or something? So this way you can get buy one get one half off.
Oh, stop! He's just making stuff up. I love the magazine, Phil. I love talking to you about football. Tons of fun. So thank you.
That is Phil Steele. He is incredible.
So good.
That was so good.
But you guys, the nuance of how he talks about football, he knows the game. He understands culture. He understands how you win. The thing about up front just was giving me the chills because, I know my championship team had 4 of the 5 players on that team that played long NFL careers. My left tackle was a Hall of Famer and one of the best left tackles of all time. To me, you win when you he talked about Florida. That scares me a little bit because now you throw in a quarterback like DJ Lagway, who everybody's high on, but he doesn't have a ton of experience. He kind of came on and people see his ability and what he can do, and they're like, wow. But when you throw that in, when you have a quarterback like that, who is athletic, strong arm, and you add in an offensive line that's really good, and then you assume with that offensive line they will be able to run the ball with an athlete and a quarterback like that, it makes you dangerous, really, really, really dangerous. Not to mention he liked Penn State and Clemson, who arguably, and you guys, I know some people think I pick on Drew Aller a little bit on the show. I just want him to watch Tom Brady film and work on his pocket presence and kind of use the whole field. But he has a run game, an offensive line, so I have a feeling they're just going to keep using him. He throws a great deep ball. I love his touch on a deep ball. So when you start talking about him, you start talking about Cade Klubnik, who I really like. I wish we would have asked him about, because I'm with you on Garrett Nussmeier. I think he's one of those quarterbacks that's coming back that has a ton of experience.
Yes.
That's really good at using the whole field and spreading the ball around. I wonder where their offensive line, I know I have the magazine run in front of me, but I don't have it hit up yet, but where their offensive line is ranked, because that's going to matter a ton. He's just filled with he studies from the end of the season all the way through to the beginning of the next season, and then he's constantly tweaking and adjusting and putting out new stuff. I mean, the guy watches more college football than anybody, so we're very lucky to have him.
Yeah, that's not an opinion, by the way. It's fact. Phil watches more football than you do. And there's some guy out there that's like, no, man, I watch all the games. Well, no, you don't, because there's conferences that you're not watching, and you're not watching the games multiple times, right, which Phil is doing. So, look, what did he say, 360 pages? These magazines don't happen by accident. Phil's a tremendous resource. We love him. That's why we keep inviting him back. I am going to tee you up, Wayne, for something that you said earlier that I think needs to be repeated on this show about quarterback play. And yes, who better to evaluate quarterback play than a former quarterback? That's part of the reason Wayne's here. There are, if I'm looking at the AP poll, because that's all I have right now, if I'm looking at the top 8 teams in the AP poll, 6 of them are breaking in a new quarterback, including Arch Manning, who I understand he's a Manning. Guy only had 2 starts last year. Number 1 Texas is breaking in a new quarterback. He's going to be a very good one, but he's new. And if you go down the list, and I think you touched on this with Phil, which is, it's really interesting. We know what Drew Aller is at Penn State, and I know Drew Aller has a lot of haters out there, and I think those folks are crazy because the dude went to the CFP semis last year. Like, are we not going to give him credit for that? Like, we're going to hold that against him?
Well, people don't give Nico any credit for making it to the playoffs with Tennessee. They act like he was, the weak link. So,
okay.
And trust me, I watched some of the games, and it wasn't always pretty. But it's still hard to win that many games. But anyways, sorry.
No,
sorry. Just throwing that
fine.
out there.
It's okay. You see the world through powder blue lenses. It's totally fine.
By the way, offensive line, according to Phil, offensive line on whatever page I'm on, they're all the way down at 43. So something to watch, when you're looking at Garrett Nussmeier and what he might do this year. The offensive line is not ranked terribly high, but then you look at a new quarterback like Dante Moore, who I'm not even sure if he's completely won the starting job yet. I think they're still predicting he will, but Oregon's offensive line is ranked 10. Okay, Utah is ranked number 7. I did Utah radio this afternoon because that's UCLA's first game, and all they're talking about is how good that offensive line is.
Yeah.
All they're talking about is how good their tackles are.
Yeah.
So these are some Florida 5, and this is important. Auburn's at 12. You don't want to talk about Auburn, but if you're looking at Hugh Freeze, a coach that's proven he can win, having a good offensive line is a great place to start.
You have absolutely hijacked the thing I was going to tee you up
I'm
for.
going to come back to it. I just had to finish my thought. I already know what you asked.
Penn State and Clemson have proven commodities at quarterback if you're talking about teams in the top 8.
Yep.
Okay? Alabama, Ty Simpson, brand new. Oregon, Dante Moore, haven't seen him in a year. 2 years, really. Georgia, breaking in a new guy. I talked to him at SEC Media Days. I don't see it. Like if he's going to lead, he's going to do it with his on the field stuff because the guy is as soft spoken and shy as you'll ever see for the quarterback of a program. Like say what you want about Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett was cocky. Like that dude
he still is, by the way. And by the way, he's having a great preseason right now.
Gunnar Stockton is a soft spoken guy. Ohio State, Julian Sayin, redshirt freshman.
Just saying.
Notre
Julian
Dame.
Sayin.
They announced today. CJ Carr, freshman.
Yep.
Like
zero stats.
You've got a lot of brand names. You got a lot of brand names at the top of that list, but you got a lot of brand new quarterbacks, and that's what's going to make games like Texas, Ohio State so fun. That's what's going to make Clemson, LSU Saturday night next week. You think about you want to talk about star power. Cade Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier, two potential NFL franchise quarterbacks hooking up under the lights in Death Valley. Yes, please. Sign me up.
So let's break this down. I did the same thing you did. I went through the top 15 teams and looked at experience, starts. I looked at and we're in different levels. I already teased this earlier in the show. Think about how when Jaden Daniels won the Heisman, he had played a ton of football. When Bo Nix went off at Oregon, he had played a ton of football. You had to go all the way back to when the Auburn fans were saying, I don't know about this Bo Nix guy. He makes too many mistakes.
Yeah.
And then we watch players grow. Phil mentioned Dylan Raiola, who one of the things I wrote down in the rundown today was I brought up the Patrick Mahomes problem, but I also put Aaron Rodgers. We have these two quarterbacks that have been really popular. But I watched Cam Ward in his preseason game the other day take a snap, tuck down to his right, throw almost underhand around a defensive end, and miss his receiver out in the flat by 2 feet, and they couldn't stop talking about how great of a throw that was. I'm watching the game, and I'm listening to the commentators. I'm like, it was incomplete. It was a terrible throw. Tom Brady would have turned his feet, thrown it over that guy's head with a nice touch throw, and it would have been caught. I'm not saying that quarterbacks are perfect, but we're glamorizing the wrong things. Start watching Aaron Rodgers. He hardly ever steps into a throw anymore. He's got some of the greatest arm talent that's ever existed, but that dude throws everything off his back foot. That's all he does. And I'm like, someone posted this the other day, like we forget that in 2013, it might have been 2013, Peyton Manning threw for over 5,000 yards and like 55 touchdowns. And we act like quarterbacks like that can't play anymore because they can't move. And yet I'm watching last night. I was watching a game that when Alabama played Tennessee. And I'm watching Jalen Milroe throw a missile down the middle of the field. But if you watch pitchers throw, when they throw, they step toward their target. They follow through toward their target. He's stepping out to the left using all arm and just throwing a missile that's not even close to on target. It's a fundamentals thing. And yet we're teaching quarterbacks. I just talked to a college quarterback coach the other day that said some of these gurus are teaching some really stupid stuff. It's hips. You ever watch Dak Prescott do the hip thing before the game?
Yeah,
and
when
they're
he's
throwing
healthy.
off their they're throwing off their back foot. It's just one of those things that it's like step into your throw. It's not that hard.
Right.
And so I watch a lot of quarterbacks do stuff wrong, which is why last year, if you remember, I broke down the play with Drew Aller, how he was going through his progressions and his feet didn't catch up with his body when he misses the throw at the end of the game. Now, he could have got his feet around correctly and missed the throw, too. That happens. But when you watch stuff like that, you want to see quarterbacks do stuff fundamentally right. So when I pick on Drew Aller, I love his deep ball. I think he throws with great touch. I think he has great arch. I think he does a lot of things right. I don't know if he's the most natural thrower in the world, but I think if he does it the right way, he could just keep getting better. So I still think the ceiling's up there for him. I don't think he's elite right now. I think he kind of drifts off into the sunset in the NFL. I think he's going to underperform until he becomes that great pocket thrower, which is what I want to see from him. But some of these athletes, it's the opposite. I know they can run. I know they can move around. I know, like, I look up highlights of so-and-so, and the first highlight from a quarterback I see is a scramble. It's the first thing that shows up. It's not a great throw. It's not crazy. Well, it drives me crazy because at the end of the day, how many of these superior athletes are we watching fizzle out?
Well, hang on though. You're talking
Not all of them.
You're talking about Sunday football. The running athletic quarterback
You're right.
works on Saturday.
Okay. So slow down. So that's an unbelievable point. It is a different game. I 100% agree. So I 100%. It works in high school too. So now you take a quarterback like Nico. Okay, for example, he's been a hot topic. That's not just UCLA talk. I was watching his game against Alabama the other night, and it was rough. He threw some flat deep balls. He missed open receivers. Sometimes he drops his arm and the ball sails on him. Sometimes he's throwing nothing but fastballs. But when I see that, just like I see any quarterback, I think you got to coach that out of him. You've got to teach him touch. You've got to teach him to process sooner. You've got to teach him to get through his progressions. Make the right decisions. Take the layup instead of waiting for the over route that's when the guy in the flat's wide open. These are things that can be taught. And so when I look at young quarterbacks like Dylan Raiola, for example, and I watch all of his highlights and they're all about how his arm angle is and how much he looks like Patrick Mahomes, that's great. I just read an article about how amazing Dante Moore was, but when he was at UCLA, he was throwing a ton of pick sixes. So now how does that translate to a year of sitting out and then what he's going to be now? Well, he's surrounded by superior talent. That's great. But is he going to be able to make the right read? I actually think Dante Moore is going to be pretty good, but he has to be. He's not an extremely great. He's like Raiola with his speed. He can move around. He's not going to kill people with his legs, but he's athletic. But if he becomes a great, uses that arm talent and uses the field the way he should. Like I keep bringing up Joe Burrow because I just watched him play a whole half where I thought he was going to end his season for the Bengals because they still aren't blocking. And that guy wanted to stay in the game to work with the first and second receivers. And really when you got done watching it, you're like, man, Joe Burrow is really freaking good. He just throws the ball. He threw a pass in the back of the end zone that could not have been any more. It's almost like we've forgotten that a lot of these big, strong-arm quarterbacks, they're not accurate. The ball comes out 1,000 miles an hour, and it sails, and it sinks, and it wobbles. He just throws a very catchable ball on time where he's supposed to. And if they could figure out how to block, we saw it at LSU. When you block for that guy, he's going to have one of the best offenses that colleges have ever seen. So, and by the way, he can still move and run around too. So when I look at Raiola and Moore, just like Cam Ward, it's great that you have this amazing arm talent. But you still have to learn to play the position correctly if you ever want to live up to. Because remember, Miami didn't win. I mean, they won games, but they didn't win it. So I just hope these guys keep getting better. Trust me. I'm not saying I was anything special. That's not my point. I just been watching football for a long time, and I've watched a lot of really good quarterbacks, and I want to see all of these guys take the next step, and I hope they have coaches that are pushing them to do that.
Yeah. One of the things, I mean, you're right. I think the number of good coaches in college, and good is such a, I mean, that it's so subjective. Like, all these guys are obviously good coaches. It's a profession. Like, Phil Longo got ran out of Wisconsin. Like, they thought, like, it didn't work. You could argue that it didn't work towards the end of his North Carolina era as well when he was in Chapel Hill. Now he's the head coach of Sam Houston, and he's going to have his work cut out for him because Sam Houston is a middling Conference USA team. My point is, like, Phil Longo is considered a very good offensive coordinator, even though the system the last couple of years and what he's put out on the field hasn't worked. That guy still knows way more about football and play calling than you and I do. My point is the amount of coaching, like good coaching that happens on Saturdays in these facilities throughout fall ball, throughout camps. I just, with the amount of movement, like everybody knows about the portal.
Yes.
Everybody knows
Yes.
about how much these guys, hey, this is a quarterback who's on his third school in 3 years because he's chasing the bag and it's not working out, and now he wants to play, and he's at a school that you've never heard of. These coordinators are moving around a lot too. So like with Clemson and Cade Klubnik, like you've also got Garrett Riley who's in his third year, who's like those two were joined at the hip. And that makes a humongous difference when you're talking Penn State, Drew Aller, but you've also got Andy Kotelnicki, the OC, who was drawing up stuff in the sand at Kansas with Lance Leipold. Like, those guys are attached at the hip. I'll give you another one, and this didn't come up when Phil brought it up, talking about Alabama with Ty Simpson. Ryan Grubb, the OC, who has been with Kalen DeBoer everywhere, going back to, like, the Sioux Falls days, okay? Like, yeah, he spent a year in the NFL, but he came back to Tuscaloosa to be with DeBoer and to rebuild, at least in theory, what they had in Seattle with Michael Penix and company. So, yes, quarterbacks, athletes,
so
the number of stars that you are coming out of high school, all that stuff matters. But, man, like, who's in your ear? Like,
it's such a great
who's
point.
drawing up plays for you? Because that makes a huge difference.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm bullish on Nico is I think people are going to learn about Tino Sinceri and what he did with Curtis Rourke at Indiana last year was not a fluke. He was on Nick Saban's staff in the past.
Yeah.
This guy knows how to coach quarterbacks, and he's got a 5-star guy that, trust me, he's not holding back on making sure he knows when he does something right or wrong. So it matters. So let's add, first of all, Stephen, that was one of your best segments with me ever. Because I 100% agree. I don't want to yell at you. I don't want to say anything bad. That was awesome. For the Texas fans, if you think we forgot about Arch Manning, to me, he fits the mold of J.J. McCarthy a couple years ago. One of the things I was trying to bring up earlier is if you look at our national champions, Will Howard played a lot of football before Ohio State. Mm-hmm. J.J. McCarthy, yeah, he was backing up another quarterback and getting some action, but eventually once he got in, he had already had some game experience.
So Cade McNamara, was that who
Cade
he was
McNamara
behind?
was the starter, and then they would bring JJ in, kind of like they were using Arch at Texas, right? They'd bring him in for a more athletic quarterback and did some good things. Stetson Bennett was in his last couple of years. Mac Jones was an older quarterback that played so well that it got him drafted probably higher than he should have been. And then Joe Burrow was a quarterback that had been around forever. I mean, you even look at some of the teams that were close. Texas had Quinn Ewers, who had been playing a ton of he'd played a ton of quarterback and been around for a long time. You know, LSU had an experienced quarterback. Oregon had an experienced quarterback. This is going to be a crazy year, But because Arch didn't transfer, because he's been in that Sark system, I actually expect him to kind of be seamless. I feel like it's kind of funny, and I'm not putting myself in this category, but I was like a 4th or 5th year guy when I played my first season. I got hurt my first season, but my second season as a starter, my first full season, and we won a championship. But I was a 5th year junior. I had been through a ton of practices and been to a ton of games, and so I wasn't a freshman straight out of high school trying to adjust to the speed of the game. Arch Manning's not going to have to adjust to the speed of the game. He's been out there. He's done that. Does that mean he's not going to have some bumps? But what did Phil tell us? Is Texas loaded with talent? Does it help quarterbacks that are just trying to learn the game to be surrounded by really, really good players? You mentioned Drew Aller. But even if you look at quarterbacks like Sayan or Gunnar Stockton, those guys are surrounded by elite talent. C.J. Carr should have really good talent around him. Carr's the one I'm worried about. That's a guy that's got no experience. I think that's going to be tough. I think there's going to be some growing pains there. I think those other two I mentioned are a little bit more experienced, at least being and practicing, having some reps. So it's really, really tricky. Ty Simpson, I think Phil said it perfectly. It is my opinion. I watched Jalen Milroe all year last year. I think he's a great athlete. But I told anybody that would listen, if you would have taken the quarterback that was at Fresno State, why am I forgetting his name right now? He's still in the NFL. That Kalen DeBoer had at Fresno State, and you'd have put him on Alabama's team last year, I think Alabama would have done better. Having Michael Penix, who was an elite passer, was really good. Ty Simpson, as Phil pointed out, was a very big recruit. He has a chance to fit that system better. Because I've seen that system. I saw it at Fresno State. I saw it at Washington. What Kalen DeBoer can do is pretty amazing. So I'm actually pretty high.
Are you thinking of Jake Haener?
Jake Haener, yeah.
That
yes,
guy,
I am.
That guy.
And literally people are probably sitting out there right now. And again, I apologize for the person that doesn't like it when I say literally. I've been working on that. Jake Haener was good. He's still on a roster.
Didn't he win a game at the Rose Bowl?
He did.
Come from behind with he had broken ribs and stuff.
It
didn't matter.
He did.
Yeah.
But he was pretty good for Fresno State, and I promise you, he was a really good quarterback at running that system. I don't know if Milroe fit that system. I don't know. And again, Alabama still had a solid year, but for their standards, not even close to what they want. I think they might be better this year. We know they still have tons of talent everywhere. I would like to see Alabama get back to being able to run the football really well. But I think there's a chance Alabama could have a little bit of a resurgence. I don't know what to expect. What do you think about Gunnar Stockton? This is a very quarterback-heavy show today, and it's because of what we've been talking about. There's just so many. Everybody just kind of says, oh, this will just be like Stetson Bennett. We've got a guy that looks like he's pretty old and he's been around for a while. The team seems to respond to him when he gets in there. Georgia's usually loaded. I really don't know what to expect, to be honest with you.
So that's a loaded question because I did get to talk to Gunnar Stockton at SEC Media Days.
I bet you loved him too.
Look, a lot of these guys, it's funny because I'll tell my wife this because, she's not a college football person, but she gets it. She understands, Dad's got to go to work. Well, what does that look like? He's going to SEC Media Days for 4 days. He's talking to coaches and players. The football for those 18 to 23-year-old kids is so much easier than the talking. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Practice for them, diagnosing film, reading a defense, whether you're a quarterback or a linebacker or wide receiver. Football is easy. Sitting down and putting on a headset and talking about, just talking, period, is a challenge for some of these guys. So Gunnar Stockton's a super smart guy, but he's from Northeast Georgia. If you look at a map, there's a tip of Georgia that touches the far western tip of North Carolina. And there's a county in Northeast Georgia called Rabun County. Okay? And it's in the mountains, okay?
Some banjo playing?
That's where Gunnar Stockton's from.
Okay.
He still rides around in an old F-150 that his dad had. He has cows.
I like him already.
He's a down-to-earth dude, okay? But he is not a vocal leader. He is Like, say what you want about Stetson Bennett. Guy won back-to-back national championships. He was a cocky SOB. Like, he was good, and he knew he was good. Stockton is more of like a, hey, this has always been my dream. Yeah, I take a lot more pictures when I walk across campus, but like, he's not Arch Manning. Like, he's not Joe Burrow. Like, there is no swag there. Okay. So I've talked to Georgia fans who are like, I don't know about this. I don't feel great about this. But going back to your earlier point about Alabama running the football, Georgia did not run the football very well
at all
last year.
Yeah.
They were banged up. ETN
Which is weird, right?
ETN was kind of a no-show. I know he had a good game. He had 2 good games against Texas last year, but wasn't, they didn't have a 1,000-yard rusher. They haven't had one for a while. And this is Georgia football. Like, this is Herschel. Like, this is tailback U. So Georgia's got to get back to running the football. Alabama's got to get back to running the football. And the best way to break in a new quarterback is when you can turn it around and hand the ball off. Like C.J. Carr at Notre Dame, you're right, Wayne. He's a true freshman. But guess who else he's got? He's got Jeremiah Love. So you can turn around and hand that thing off to Jeremiah Love 25, 30 times a game. You're going to be okay. You know what I'm saying? You're going to be all right. So, look, we're talking about all this stuff. We got to see these guys actually play football. Like, we got to see it.
More than ever. I just feel like more than ever. There's so many question marks because of the transfer portal. And again, we learned last year, teams are going to surprise you. I was intrigued when I did this quarterback list, Steven, and I don't know if you got to this point and your kind of ears perked up. But when I got to number 10, number 11, and number 12, Miami and Carson Beck, that's intriguing to me because Carson Beck's played a lot of football.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm intrigued by Illinois.
Altmaier.
And Luke
Love
Altmaier.
Him. Love him.
He's another quarterback. They're sitting down the list a little bit, but when you have a really good quarterback and you're playing a bunch of inexperienced quarterbacks, it gives you an advantage, especially when your team is solid, and Illinois is solid. And then, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at ASU. Leavitt was good last year. Really, really good. Now, I know people are struggling with the only player on that team that everybody loved to talk about was Scattaboo.
Yeah.
And for good reason. He became like he was one of those cool stories. And I know everybody's waiting to see what he does in the NFL. But they still bring a ton of that team back. They're not going to sneak up on people, but they bring a ton of that team back, and they've got a really good quarterback. So I reached that part of the top 25 or the top 15, and I was like, and really right in front of that was Garrett Nussmeier and LSU. So like 9, 10, 11, and 12 have a ton of experience at quarterback. So could that project them? I know quarterbacks aren't the only thing, but if we learned anything in the last several years of college football, most of these elite teams had really good quarterbacks.
Yeah, and for me, and folks, I promise this will not be a quarterback show every Wednesday.
No, yeah.
But for me, like the thing I love, because look, we've talked about this. I'm not NFL guy, and yes, a lot of that has to do with Super Bowl 51 and the way that ended, and the fact that I'm from Atlanta. But still, like Daniel Jones was announced the starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts today, and everybody on Twitter is like, "Oh my God!" Like. This is the best you can do. Like there's 30 guys, 35, 40 guys in the NFL who play the position. We all know what they are. Like we know what they are. Okay? With the exception of a handful, like the first and second year guys. In college though, man, I can give you like 50, 60 quarterbacks. Not off the top of my head. I need the list. But Phil Steele has the list in his magazine, and like I'll go down to like guys in the 40s. Like Caden Salter at Colorado, like sure, I'm intrigued. He's got Kevin Jennings, 35. Guy went to the playoff last year with SMU. Yeah. I know he was a turnover machine. Tyler Van Dyke, remember him? Yep. He's in the 30s.
He's still in college?
Noah Fafita at Arizona.
Who 2 years ago was really good. So see if he can
was the best thing
get
since
that
sliced bread,
back.
Right? He's got Dante Moore, 34 at Oregon. But my point is, in college, there's so many more teams, there's so many more players, and you just don't know, man. It's not that you know in the NFL, but you kind of know. Like, there's the haves and the have-nots. And with college football, I'm telling you, we're going to see it on Saturday in Dublin at high noon.
Yep.
And I'm going to be watching Iowa State, Kansas State. Like, stuff's going to happen. Blown coverages, turnovers, guys are slipping. It's that happens on Saturdays and it doesn't happen on Sundays. And that's, for me, why Saturday's greater than Sundays. for me.
Well, you said it perfectly earlier, and again, I know we're heavy quarterback today. Like we'll have once we start having games, we'll have a lot more to talk about. But I think this year's probably, to me at least, I have a hard time. It's easy to come up with a Clemson or a Texas or a Penn State, but there's some question marks. So quarterback really matters. Like I was looking at Michigan. Michigan's going to be playing a freshman quarterback this year. He's got a ton of talent, but they also have according to Phil, their offensive line is ranked 22 in the country. That's the top 25 offensive line.
Bryce Underwood.
If you have that, I've never seen him play.
Highest ranked quarterback Michigan's ever signed.
Exactly. And so, like, the idea is, and if you really think about the way Michigan, at least historically, plays football, if they can pound the rock, have that athletic quarterback. I mean, remember, J.J. McCarthy was more about running for a while, and then we learned he had a really good arm, and he's a really good quarterback. But, like, you can find ways to win football games if you have a quarterback that protects the football. I mean, I could go on and on about this, but there are ways. I think you pointed it out earlier. This is not the NFL. You can win football games with quarterbacks that are different, have different styles. You really can. It starts with being good up front and being able to run the football. I think that really helps. But you can also have a quarterback that can spin the rock and spread it all over the field like a Jackson Dart type. You know, there's another team that's replacing a quarterback that, by the way, already looks really good in the NFL in preseason, which is kind of weird. But there's a lot of different ways to do it in college. And you also said this earlier, too. Who's in their ear? Who's their coach?
Like Jaden Mayava, according to Phil Steele, he ranks the top draft-eligible quarterbacks. He's got Jaden Mayava at USC, who is the starter, correct?
Yep.
51 on his list of draft-eligible quarterbacks. Thomas Castellanos, the guy who transferred from BC, who's the starter at Florida State, 62.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry, that does not happen in the National Football League. Because if you're a USC fan or a Florida State fan, there's no way that there's 61 quarterbacks better than yours. Right?
Well, you just brought up two. First of all, what Lincoln Riley's done with his quarterbacks over the years, as recently as a few years ago.
Yeah, pretty.
He's got a lot of Heisman Trophy quarterbacks. Jaden Mayava he's got talent. I think the problem with what's happening at USC is we saw Caleb Williams go from winning a Heisman to struggling to win, I think, 7 games because he's running for his life. The defense wasn't that good, and it hurts you. We all know this, that sometimes we forget to look at this is why the NFL fails so much in drafting quarterbacks, is we get these kids that do nothing but win, and we just think that they're always going to be playing on teams with superior talent than everybody else, and it doesn't always work that way. They get into the NFL, and you start noticing their weaknesses. But in college, like those two quarterbacks you just mentioned, because I happen to think USC and Florida State, I fully expect Florida State to be better this year. They can't be worse.
They
can't be worse.
Absolutely cannot be worse. They had one FBS win last year.
Yes, they cannot be worse. But those are two teams to watch because I think those coaches, if they struggle again this year, which means if those quarterbacks struggle again this year, I think those seats are extremely hot.
Florida State, you know how many points per game they scored last year, Wayne?
It wasn't a lot.
Just take a guess. Just throw a number out there.
17.
Less than that. 15
well,
points per game. Florida freaking State, dude.
My Bruins were at 18 last year.
It's
hard. No, and that's why there's been changes made, correct?
It's tough to win games in 2025 if you're not breaking
have to score
20,
points
yeah.
in the current college football.
Yes, you do.
You have to. People, you mean offense is it's hard, but we also have seen, listen, we saw Michigan do it on the ground and with great defense and with a quarterback. Drew Aller and Penn State could use that same Michigan formula.
What else was Michigan doing, though? What else was Michigan doing when they won the national championship?
Can we go to cheating?
That's correct. They were.
Can we go down this road right now? Because what kills
scouting,
me,
I believe, is the preferred nomenclature if you're a Michigan fan.
How are so many people just okay with cheating? Like, it kills me to think about how many people are like, whatever. They paid this player. They stole signs. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. I'm like, really, people? if I'm playing a game that nobody's watching against somebody and they cheat, I want to fight them. Like, I don't understand if Hartzell and I are playing golf together and this guy's dropping a ball out of his pocket when he's, oh, hey, I found it. We're having a problem because I want to win, and I'm kind of blown away with how many people are just like, I'm cool with the free-for-all. Just do whatever you want. And by the way, what's the NCAA going to do? I mean, the punishment's there. There's some money involved, but does it really affect Michigan going forward? Did they still win the national championship?
Correct. The banner stays hung. Harbaugh is not allowed to return to college coaching until he's in his mid-70s, which is he's never going to do anyway.
Yeah.
But, it's –
I try to teach 8th graders, Hartzell.
I know. God bless you.
That you can't have freedom without rules.
I might use that on my
You have to have fair and just laws to have freedom. So if we're living in a society where there's no rules and there's chaos, then what are we doing?
Right. That's why I try to come up with the show rundown, Wayne, because I can't give you the freedom on the show. If I do, you'll take us all over the place. You're
making me do homework this year. Did you notice that you didn't have to prompt me and I wrote a few things down?
I noticed I've been doing the show with you, Wayne, for easily 10 years. I feel like it's closer to 12,
it's
honestly.
Probably longer, yeah.
This is the first time I've ever seen you put something in the Google Doc. Like, you've got notes. It's not that you show up and you're not prepared, but I've never actually seen you, Wayne Cook, Professor Cook, like, type stuff in there. And I opened up the document today and I was like, who put this here? Oh my God, this is Wayne. I'm so proud of you, man. I'm so proud of you.
Well,
huge moment for us.
I'm a little bit like an athlete that reminds themselves that this could be your last day.
Right.
I have to keep reminding myself as I'm getting older that, maybe they want to move on. So I got to keep working.
It's a 1-year scholarship, Wayne. Until you get that call from me every summer, it's a 1-year scholarship.
More so than ever. And everybody out there needs to know this. I tell my wife all the time, I go, I talked to Steven and he didn't say we weren't doing it again next year because I'm almost afraid to ask. So here we are, 1-year scholarship.
Me too, buddy. I'm going to let you go on this. How are you going to spend your last weekend without having to be at the Rose Bowl and having to be, like, embedded with UCLA football and just football in general? We got week 0. We got 5 games. The first one for you kicks at 9 o'clock a.m. local time.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but West Coast, the times are great for us. I love the 9 a.m. kicks. I'm already awake. I've had my coffee, had a little breakfast.
You're still getting down on the breakfast burritos?
Oh, only whenever my wife goes somewhere, I immediately, the place is called Siggy's, and I get a huge breakfast burrito, and I look forward to it every single time. So
what does that cost in Southern California these days? Let me guess,
gosh,
$35.
No, the burrito alone is like $11 or $12. If I decide to get a Diet Coke to go along with it, it's $15. But yeah, things are so expensive. But no. I'm going to sit down and watch that game because I am very intrigued by those two teams. Iowa State and Kansas State. I can't wait for that game. I am very curious about the UNLV game because all of us do this with our own teams. When you start breaking down the schedule,
sure.
And Phil pointed it out, they brought in a ton of guys that came out of high school with stars by their name. Dan Mullen's a name. He's a guy that's been on ESPN for a while.
Yeah.
People know who he is. So he recruited those players to UNLV who were coming off of being pretty successful as of late.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, even when their quarterback decided he wasn't going to play there anymore, they still ended up winning a whole bunch of games.
Mountain West Championship game last year.
Remember that fiasco last year? Their quarterback decided he wasn't going to play anymore. And
you know what team that guy's on? Jordan Saluka?
No.
I think it's Saluka, right? That's the guy's name? I don't know his first name. Matthew Saluka?
I don't remember.
Matthew Saluka. You know what team he's on?
No.
James Madison University.
Oh, of course he is.
My
JMI.
alma mater.
Is he starting? Is he starting?
JMU, not JMI. That's your
JMU.
That's your multimedia rights holder. We'll edit that out.
That was a Freudian slip.
We'll edit that. We'll edit that out.
Yeah, JMU. Yeah.
He is vying for the starting job because Alonzo Barnett, the guy who hung 70 points on UNC last year, he's coming back from an ACL injury. So don't know, but still, Sluka, that guy that you referred to, he's in Harrisonburg, Virginia. It's not the week 2 game you got to worry about if you're UCLA. It's week 1. Utah comes to town.
No. I'll tell anybody that'll listen. Like, if you're looking forward to a really good slate of football games, and you're one of those people that'll stay up late, which for you guys is the game doesn't kick till 11 East Coast.
Next week, Utah, UCLA.
Yeah,
is
Utah's
11.
8 o'clock at the Rose Bowl for us, so 11 for you. But it's an old Pac-12 matchup. And UCLA, and the last time I think Utah came to the Rose Bowl, I think UCLA won. But I think that they've kind of had us. So it should be a really good game, and people should be, especially if you're a Big 12 fan, a lot of people are expecting Utah to not be down with Kyle Whittingham for more than 1 year. So
yeah, Devin,
they're going to be better this year.
They haven't, you forget that, like, we'll save this for next week, but just on our way out the door, Utah hasn't had a quarterback in 3 years.
Yeah. Cam Rising keeps getting hurt, and now he's gone.
He was holding the program hostage. Devin Dampier did some pretty awesome stuff at New Mexico last year.
He's a really good
on
athlete.
The East Coast, most people on the East Coast have no idea who Devin Dampier is. This guy is a monster. Yeah. If he can stay healthy, Utah's back. Like, the offensive line, the defense, that could be a lot of fun. UCLA is a home underdog next week. Utah, I believe, is ranked. Let me double-check this. We'll make sure that we ask. No, they are not ranked. We will make sure that we ask
But some people
Phil.
think they should be.
We will make sure. They're ranked 27th in the AP in terms of the receiving votes. So my point is we will make sure that Phil gives us his unbiased opinion on what happens at the Rose Bowl for Week 1 and everything else. Because, man, as excited as I am for Week 0, it's a stressful weekend for your boy. I got a birthday party that I got to host. Little guy's turning 9. There's a lot of moving parts here. Oh, by the way, as we mentioned at the jump, I have a real job, and they need me there. Okay? So it's stressful, man. But look, it's college football. We love talking about it, and we thank you guys for listening very, very much. Wayne, enjoy your weekend.
You too.
Thank you for hopping on. Thank you to Phil Steele. Can't wait to get things back with him. We're going to be just eyeballs deep in games next week. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you on Friday. Michael Felder returns here on CSN. We'll talk to you then.